I want to this is called an honorable profession, and we often like to talk to people about kind of how they got into this business. You have had such an interesting trajectory to start Code for America, which you've mentioned, and then to go into the White House and actually, ironically, help launch the organization that now DOGE has taken over and renamed DOGE. It was right, the Department of Digital Services. It is now DOGE. Your
You had to
department.
mention that, didn't you?
I'm sorry. I didn't, I just found, I found I didn't know that until I started looking at this. I was like, that is
Yeah.
fascinating. So why did this become so important to you? You're obviously so passionate. You've dedicated your whole life in making the government work better, being more effective. Where did this passion come from?
Well, my dad is a teacher. My mom was a nurse midwife. So I think I always had that sort of sense of, serving the public. But you know, my first job out of college, I worked for a child welfare agency. And then I left and I ended up coming back and I ended up in tech just because I needed a job. I'd been traveling. And, you know, I got to be around the tech industry when Facebook and Twitter and Google were all these like little baby companies, and we were putting them on stage at our Web 2.0 events. And it was sort of this idea of Web 2.0 was very interesting for a while, and then it kind of became a little bit boring as it just became all these companies trying to use the buzzwords. And right around then, Barack Obama had barackobama.com, run by Blue State Digital, and there was this idea that wow, like the internet is helping this guy get elected, but once he is elected, will this new participatory web be able to help him govern better? Right. And that was a very different question. And so it all kind of came together for me at that time that here we had all this incredibly generative and creative Web 2.0 technology that's changing the world. But I could think back to working at the child welfare agency and saying, if we can have, magical technology that changed the world, like the best the technology industry has to offer should be going to things like child welfare.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that matters most. And then we started this Gov 2.0 brand. So I started going to DC to understand how government did technology. And let me just say, it's an understatement to say the best the technology industry had to offer was not going into government at the time.
Yeah.
And the systems that run things that are critical, like child welfare or SNAP or stuff at the Department of Defense, or the implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act, or the permitting systems that need to work for us to have more housing, right? Those are not great technology systems. Yeah. And they're holding us back in really critical ways. And it just seemed to me that the intersection of my interests was, a neglected intersection, and that somebody ought to do something about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've just been such an incredible force for this, and thank you for that. And I guess, I'll end with this question. My hope is that this is going to be an incredible civic lesson that we're going through about what government actually does. This is a opportunity to restart the conversation for Democrats in particular to get back on the side of taking government reform seriously and making it work better for people. So that's my silver lining. Do you also have a silver lining that this eventually ends in a place that's going to be better for Americans?
Yes. There's so many caveats to that in the sense of, what is going to happen. I think I live in the DC area right now, so I'm surrounded by the DOGE conversation. And to me, the shining star of hope is what can happen in the local level and in the state level, because we have to show, states and Dems have to show that we can disrupt ourselves in a responsible way.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we will be disrupted. And it is, as we know now, extremely unpleasant and potentially hugely damaging. So we've got to do it ourselves. We've got to take charge. We've got to be on offense. I understand that there's defense that needs to happen, and more power to that. But we must also be on offense, and we have to show that this is possible to do it responsibly.